Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our latest and greatest Governance and Transparency Committee meeting. All councillors are in attendance that are members of the committee. I'll move on to the acknowledgement of country. Ipswich City Council respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners as custodians of the land upon which we meet. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging as the keepers of the traditions, cultures and stories of a proud people. Do any councillors have declarations of interest in matters on the agenda this morning? I actually do. Probably a bit OTT, but such is the nature of our business. In accordance with section 150 EQ of the Local Government Act, I, Councillor Jacob Madsen, informed the meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in item 6, procurement, Forbury commercial modelling software for Nicholas Street Precinct. The nature of the declarable conflict of interest is it's a piece of modelling software for Council's Nicholas Street Precinct works, and I'm on the executive of the Ipswich Trades Hall and Labor Day Committee, which is adjacent to that. And I'd like to continue my practice of leaving the meeting room while matters involving that are discussed and voted on. Any further declarations this morning? All right, we'll move on to the confirmation of minutes. I'll seek a mover from the floor. Councillor Milligan, seconded by Councillor Doyle. Any discussion on those minutes this morning? I'll put the recommendation that those minutes be confirmed to the vote. Those in favour? That's unanimous and carried. So we've got item 2 today is the proposed organisational restructure. So the attachment for item, I've just got a note here, the attachment for item 2 was circulated to councillors on Tuesday morning outlining some corrections. Is everybody aware of that email before we proceed on this matter? That being the case, are there any questions for the relevant officer on this matter? There being no questions, I'll seek a mover for recommendations A and B, noting B is inclusive of 3 subsections. Moved by Mayor Harding, seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion this morning on that?
If I may, Chair, I guess as a council we've deliberately not, there's a lot of reorganisation and restructure before us coming along. There were 8 departments down to 5. So we've deliberately not changed that to see how things go. I think the changes that we're proposing are a better alignment, and I think our organisation will be even more efficient. The infrastructure and the IED department, infrastructure and environment department, basically had about 800 of our 1,400 staff, as well as most of the budget too. So I think this is a better alignment. It also shows the focus that we have now on environment sustainability as well. So I think it's an improvement. I think what was done before was an improvement, but I think this is part of our continual improvement in being more efficient and providing better services for our residents.
Thank you, Mayor. Any further discussion? I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour of A and B? That's unanimous and carried. Item 3 today is the proposed concession for general rates for 297-347 Alpers Road, Mount Mort, Queensland. So that's a property owned by the Queensland Trust for Nature. Do any members of the committee have questions on this matter? Being no questions, I'll seek a mover for the 1 recommendation. Moved by Councillor Doyle, seconded by Councillor Kunzelman. Any discussion on this one this morning? There being no discussion, I'll put the recommendation to the vote. Those in favour? That's unanimous and carried. Item 4 today is concession for general rates, various properties. So this is a report concerning a request for a concession for general rates from Cherish the Environment Foundation Limited for 11 properties. Do any members of the committee have questions about this report? There being no questions, I'll seek a mover for the single recommendation. Moved by Councillor Kunzelman, seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion this morning? There being no discussion, I'll put the recommendation to the vote. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous and carried. Item 5 today is a procurement matter for Local Government Infrastructure Plan Advisory and Coordination Services. Are there any questions on this matter this morning? As it's a procurement matter, I'll seek somebody to move recommendation A and B together from the committee. Anyone? Councillor Milligan, and seconded by Mayor Harding. Any discussion on that one this morning?
Just that I support it, obviously as part of our new planning scheme. I see this as an important part of the support in our team to do that.
Thank you, Mayor. That being the case, I'll put recommendation A and B to the vote. Those in favour of adopting, that's unanimous and carried. And for this next item, I will hand over to our esteemed Deputy Chair, Councillor Russell Milligan.
Double. Committee members, item 6 is procurement matter, Forbury commercial modelling software for Nicholas Street Precinct, as Chair had outlined previously. Recommendation is in 2 parts, A and B, as per the agenda. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Mayor Harding. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Doyle. I'll open. Does any member of committee wish to ask any questions? No? Then I'll open the matter for discussion. Mayor Harding.
If I may, Chair, obviously with the Nicholas Street Precinct, we work very closely with Queensland Treasury Corp, and obviously we've done some modelling with them, so I'll be strongly supporting this because it's part of our suite of tools that we use as councillors and as an organisation to make sure that we get the best value for the residents of Ipswich, so I'll be supporting this.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other?
I just want to reiterate the Mayor's thoughts and comments on this, and looking forward to being able to utilise the software. And I know Councillor Jonick, our resident accountant geek, is really excited by these sorts of things. So, yeah, looking forward to being able to use it to help us understand better the decisions we're making. It has been modelled by Queensland Treasury Corporation, but it's just another tool in helping us forecast and see what's coming.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other member of the committee wish to speak? No? Then it has been moved and seconded. Those in favour? Unanimous and carried. Thank you. We can ring the bell.
Thank you, everyone. That's item 7 that we're up to now, the procurement matter for bridge replacement works, Hidden Vale Road Calvert. Any questions of the relevant officer on this one? I'll seek a mover for recommendation A through C, moved by Councillor Milligan, seconded by Mayor Harding. Any discussion this morning on that one? I'll just say that I'm still very thankful for the support of the federal government in delivering this project and look forward to seeing it take place. That being all discussion, I'll put the recommendations to the vote. Those in favour? That's unanimous and carried. Item 8 today is a procurement matter for Brassel Bikeway, Stage 6B. Any questions for the relevant officers on this one this morning? There being no questions, I'll seek a mover for recommendation A and B, noting that there's 3 inset parts to Part B. Mayor Harding's moved that, seconded by Councillor Kunzelman. Any discussion this morning?
Chair, this is probably the missing link for us and our bikeway here, and I know our community are very keen to get this going, so approve the approach that we'll do EOIs to see the best solution for that last part of the bikeway for our city.
Thank you. Any further discussion this morning?
Yes, Chair. In our discussions, we had the understanding that there was previous resolution of council to approve to show the intent for a particular solution, However, re-looking at it all again is the best way to move forward. Since that time, more things have occurred. So I think this is the best approach.
Thank you, Councillor Milligan.
Through you, Chair. Councillor, are you referring to whether they use the lift versus a bikeway? Right.
If discussion is exhausted, I'll put recommendation A and B to the vote. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous and carried. Item 9 today is a procurement matter for the What Bin Day app subscription for Ipswich City Council and Somerset Regional Council. There's 3 parts to this recommendation. Are there any questions for officers? Being no questions, I'll seek a mover for recommendation A through C, moved by Councillor Jonik and seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion this morning? There being no discussion, I'll put the 3 recommendations to the vote. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous and carried. Item 10 today is the amendment to committee reports dated 13 October 2022 and 10 November 2022 regarding Flood Resilient Homes Fund, voluntary home buyback, proposed property acquisition. There's 4 recommendations there. Are there any questions of the relevant officer this morning? There being no questions, I'll seek a mover for recommendation A through D, moved by Councillor Milligan and seconded by Councillor Jonik. Any discussion this morning? There being no discussion, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous and carried. Item 11 today is the Flood Recovery Resilient Homes Fund voluntary home buyback proposed property acquisition. So I'll seek if anyone's got questions for the relevant officers on this one. No questions. I'll seek a mover for recommendation A through C, moved by Councillor Jonik and seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion this morning? Mayor Harding.
If I may, I thank Council for progressing this and working closely with the state and the federal governments in this. This is a lifeline for the people in this list. They are flooded continuously at each flood in Goodna. So we'll be strongly supporting this, and we're also very grateful to the Queensland Reconstruction Authority for their support on this as well.
Any further discussion this morning? Councillor Jonik.
Just in relation to one of the occupants that was a neighbour of mine in 2011 floods and was flooded and then moved to this facility. He was elderly and wanted to avoid floods, unfortunately experienced them again, and so this means a lot. It's just a few pages in our report, but the outcome and the practicality of these decisions are changing people's lives.
Thank you, Councillor Jonik. Any further discussion this morning? There being no further discussion, I'll put recommendation A through C to the vote. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous and carried. Item 12 this morning is a disposal of council freehold land bulk decision for 649 lots identified as access restriction strips within the Ipswich City Council local government area. Are there any questions of the relevant officers on this one?
If I may, I'll just reiterate a question to the relevant council officer that I sort of sent the email about the having maps on the properties.
Good morning, Alicia Reek, Acting Property Services Manager.
Through you, Chair. Ms. Reek, thank you very much. I appreciate that we're wanting to be more efficient and put these through as a bulk lot, which I support, but I'm also cognizant of the fact that I'm exercising delegation. Is it possible for us to get the maps of all 649 lots so that we may see what delegation we're exercising?
I guess to produce that, they would have to be 649 individual maps. An access restriction strip can vary between 1/2 to 1 metre in width. Even on our live council mapping system, they're quite hard to determine, and when you're going around that, we would be able to produce them if it was individual maps at request.
Thank you, Ms. Reek. Thank you, Chair.
So there's recommendations A through E this morning. If there's no further questions of officers, I'll seek a mover for recommendation A through E. Moved by Councillor Jonik and seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion this morning?
I guess, Chair, I take my exercising my delegations very seriously, and whenever we get these individual, I always go to each individual map and look at it and see how I exercise my delegation. By not being given the map, I started going through each one myself. It's a time-consuming process, and I don't think each council should have to do that. So I guess I'm just concerned that I'm issuing a blanket delegation on lots that I haven't physically looked at. So I'll have difficulty supporting only for that reason, that I'd like to see each individual lot.
Yeah, I guess each councillor's got to make their own determination on what they feel comfortable with. I'm comfortable that there's a low level of risk personally because it's an outdated planning instrument that no longer really has the application it was intended for. So I'm not very concerned. Councillor Doyle?
Yeah, I'm sort of, I accept the Mayor's comments, but struggling to come up with what the practical solution would be here. So I guess we do have to weigh up, I guess, the level of risk and take comfort that it's minimal.
Yeah, I would just remind that we've got a fortnight before the council meeting to think a bit more on it. I don't want to be flippant, but I'm not sure the access restriction strips materially mean anything anymore, so I'll conduct my own investigations. But if you've got any questions that need answered over the next 2 weeks, regardless of what the committee recommends, forward that to the appropriate officer. Any further discussion this morning? There being no further discussion, I'll put recommendation A through E to the vote. Those in favour? That's myself, Councillor Madsen, Councillor Jonik, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Milligan and Councillor Kunzelman. Those against? Mayor Harding. Thank you, everyone. That's carried. Item 13 today is the repeal of previous council decision and proposed new trustee lease over 254 Brisbane Road, Bundamba, to Ipswich Knights Soccer Club Incorporated. Are there any questions this morning regarding this report? There being no questions, I'll seek a mover for recommendations A through E. All right, nobody's moving it. Cool. Moved by Mayor Harding, seconded by Councillor Doyle. You're calling me a drone, Councillor Doyle?
Of course not, Chair.
Any discussion this morning? There being no discussion.
Sorry, Chair. I just think it's a practical and pragmatic approach of how we juggle and work with our different sporting groups and their land to get a really good result. So I think the Knights and the Darts, for working together, I think it's a good solution.
Thank you, Chair. Absolutely agree. And, you know, Councillor Fechner and I, of course, represent Division 3 and this property sits within there. And we've been approached by various parties over the years just for some practical limitations and barriers that, yeah, so this is a really good outcome for all those involved.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Any further discussion this morning? There being no discussion, I'll put recommendation A through E to the vote. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous and carried. Item 14 this morning is the repeal of previous council decision and proposed new telecommunications lease to TPG Telecom Limited over 90 to 120 Jones Road, Belbird Park. Are there any questions this morning for the relevant officer? There being no questions, I'll seek a mover for recommendation A through C. Moved by Councillor Jonik and seconded by Mayor Harding. Any discussion this morning on that matter? There being no discussion, I'll proceed to the vote. Those in favour of adopting recommendation A, B and C. That's unanimous and carried. Item 15 today is the surrender and acquisition of drainage easements for INF 02666 over 82 and 84 Gladstone Road, Coalfalls. Are there any questions regarding this morning? There being no questions, I'll seek a mover for recommendation A through E. Moved by Mayor Harding and seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion this morning over that report and the recommendations? There being no discussion, I'll proceed to the vote. Those in favour of adopting A through E. That's unanimous and carried. Item 16 today is the iVolve Program Quarterly Status Report. Are there any questions this morning of the relevant officer? Mayor Harding.
Good morning, Matt Smith, General Manager, Corporate Services.
Through the chair, thank you, Mr. Smith. Just inquiring as to how the change management program is working within council in regards to iVolve.
Certainly, Mayor. At this stage, still some fairly early stages, given we've been going through the procurement process. So without providers on board at this stage, we have a change lead internal to council that we brought on board a number of months ago to start those preparatory parts for us to build that engagement process across council, working through particularly the teams that are going to be impacted by this first phase through our fusion project. Part of the important process for us in that change piece is to make sure we've got the right engagement with the key SMEs and users of the product as well, so that we use those as product champions. We're working through a resource recruitment phase at the moment as well to bring on some additional change resources, training lead and a comms lead also, to continue to bolster our capability to make sure, acknowledging that a lot of these technology solutions are very good, the implementation is important, but the change process is critical to make sure we get the right adoption across council and leverage the value of the solution.
Okay. And how are we going with our business partner? I know we've contracted in some support to give us that external advisory. How is that progressing?
I can share that we signed the contract with our delivery partner on Monday afternoon, finally executed that contract. We will have a company by the name of Mastech, and they will be commencing on site next Thursday the 15th to start that work with us in partnership with Oracle as the licence provider. And
that's in conjunction with the advice that we received from our independent?
That is, so our strategic advisor has provided their advice working through that process on those engagements.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you, Chair.
No further questions for Mr. Smith this morning. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Moving along to the recommendation, there's one there this morning that the report be received and contents noted. I'll seek a mover for that. Moved by Mayor Harding, seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion this morning? Mayor Harding.
If I may, Chair, I do note in the Audit and Risk Management Committee that iVolve is a standing agenda item there, and reading the reports, I'm very satisfied with how they're managing risk and the implementation of this.
Thank you, Mayor. Any further discussion from the committee? There being no discussion, I'll put that matter to the vote. Those in favour of adopting the report? That's unanimous and carried. I've got no notices of motion or business arising ahead of me, so I'm more than happy to declare the meeting closed at 10:56 a.m. this morning.